Hey, what's up, you guys? So I am so excited to talk to you today about duplication. I know that's an extremely popular topic, and we talk about it quite often. And actually, in network marketing, that topic comes around a lot. There's actually a quote that says, "It doesn't matter what works, it only matters what duplicates." We want to create systems that we can pass on to our downline so that they know what works for us can work for them. And I totally get that. But when you look at the verb duplicate, you'll see three variations of the definition in the dictionary. I think we often get caught up in that first version, to make a copy of. We expect that our downline should do exactly what we do, a carbon copy. We often get caught up in that third version as well. Once we find a system that works, we assume that everyone should want to do what we're doing. I mean, why wouldn't they? If it worked for me, then obviously it should work for them. But I'd like for us to focus on the second iteration of the definition, to produce something equal. When you look at the example sentence, trying to duplicate last year's success, the optimal word is trying to duplicate. Because ultimately, in our business, duplication won't be an exact carbon copy. And you guys, that's okay. Matter of fact, that's what's perfect. That's what makes us special. That's what makes coaching such a beautiful thing, because we all get to do it in a way that makes sense for us. It's going to be a version of something that worked for us, will ultimately work for our downline, but with their own twist and take on it. I often say that it's very similar to parenting, but we'll talk about that later. So here's the thing. The easiest thing for us to duplicate is something that already exists, that Beachbody has given to us, our 4 vital behaviors. And I know sometimes you get sick of us talking about the 4 vital behaviors, but they're vital for a reason. These basic principles we all should be duplicating. It's the foundation that our house is built on. But even here, there's still room for creativity within how to share. Let me give you an example. We all teach to do one of our programs from start to finish and to share that on social media. It's kind of the bread and butter of what we do, right? A new program comes out, we do it, we share that. But how we share that might be slightly different. Some people will show clips of their workouts daily in their stories. Some people will share their weekly progress pics. Some people use the actual name of the program, while others try to call it just based on the genre it's in. But the basic principle of sharing our workouts, we all can do that. That duplicates, but it doesn't have to duplicate exactly the same. Let me give you another example. Every Saturday, I share what I call #Danielle's virtual check-in. It's just where I share my 6 workout pictures from the week, and I share what program I'm doing and how I felt. So I'll kind of give an iteration of where I am. I'm like, oh, I just finished week 2 of lift 4, and here's what was great, and here's how I'm feeling, and here's why I'm excited about week 3, whatever. Now, I don't need all of my coaches to do this, though I have seen that some of them are, but I need for them to find a way to share their workouts with their social media in a way that feels true and authentic to them. So what I want to do is model great behavior that they can duplicate, that I'm going to plug into those 4 vital behaviors. I'm going to invite and do my personal development and be proof our products work. And I'm going to do that in ways that make sense for me, share that with my downline, and they can either do it exactly the way I do it, or they can do it in a way that adds their own little twist and piece of personality to it. So we all know the 4 vital behaviors. I want you to pause and think for a minute. How are you showing up in the vitals, and what pieces of that are duplicating down to your downline? Now, I know we've all heard this saying, but I can't do what you do. Well, cool. I don't need for you to do exactly what I do. I need for you to do what you can do, and I'm going to be here along the way to help you do that. I know we've heard this from our coaches so many times, especially in the beginning, but I can't do what you do, or I don't have as many social media followers, or I don't have the confidence as you do. They view us on our chapter 10 when they're just in their chapter 1, and they begin to question what they're capable of and what they can do. it's important for us to not only let them know that they don't have to do exactly what we're doing, but also we were once right where they were at. Like, I didn't start right away posting on social media a ton. I mean, also I'm really old in this business, so we actually didn't have stories back then, but you get the point. We didn't start by sharing everything to social, or we didn't have a large social following. It all started at that same day one. Maybe we didn't have team calls right away, or a website or a form. We didn't have assistants. We didn't outsource. That's where we are today. But we were where they are before. We remember what it was like to coach yesterday. So what did you do when you were brand new? Create a list of some of those best practices to give to your new coaches and keep it very simple. Matter of fact, we already have a list basically of what they need to be doing on a daily basis, and that's our Success Club tracking system. That duplicates. We can all do these daily activities, but again, we all have a different spin on how we're going to execute them. So in the connect, invite, follow up section, all of that duplicates, but how we do it, how we send the messages. Do we voice memo? Do we use scripts? Do we just have conversations? All of that is going to be tweaked for what feels good for us. And I think the more that we start empowering that with our coaches right from the very beginning, that I'm showing you what works for me, and I want you to use that as an example of what might work for you, I think what will happen is we will empower them to be stronger leaders. Now, the number one thing that we can and need to duplicate is our mindset. We all know that belief is what can make or break a coach. So passing down the power of a positive mindset is critical. However, we don't all resonate with the same books, authors, podcasts, trainings. We all vibe with something different. So we can offer suggestions on what's going to change their mindset, but we also have to be open to sharing books and resources that perhaps aren't for us, but we know it could be impactful for our coaches. I'll give you another perfect example. I'm not a super huge fan of like the Rachel Hollis or Jen Sincero style books, but I know that those books are really powerful for a lot of my coaches. I'm more of a Jocko Willink, David Goggins kind of girl, but that won't resonate. Just because I'm reading that doesn't mean that that's what my coaches have to read. But what does duplicate is that part of my day, every single day, is to fuel my brain as much as I fuel my body. So I'm always looking and reading and sharing and encouraging my team to find who impacts them. Personal development is just that. It's personal. But the basic principle of tapping into mindset training duplicates. But the how and the who is open to interpretation. Now here's the other thing. Duplication is a two-way street. So often we get focused on duplicating down, making sure that what we're doing is duplicatable for our teams and our downline. However, we can learn so much from our coaches. I'm learning every single day from my team, both old and new coaches alike. There are so many things that my coaches do that I have instituted in my own business with, of course, a small tweak and a twist to fit my style. My coach, Lori Stewart, started talking at her counter ages ago every morning while making her energize. I loved that idea and implemented it into my social. I tweaked it to fit me, and I gave it the name Rise and Energize. So what she did duplicated to me, and then in turn, now I'm doing it, and it's duplicating to my new coaches who are probably putting their own spin on it too. And I hope you're sensing this vibe here, this thing I'm saying on repeat with my own twist, with their own tweak, with their own personalization. That's the key here. Yes, we want things to duplicate, but we want it to duplicate in a way that makes the person feel good and take ownership in it. We could always learn from others and those around us. So when we think about what duplicates, we also need to be open to duplicating what others are doing as well. I mean, isn't that why this roundtable is such a valuable resource for us all? Because we're all learning from each other and then duplicating that with our own small tweaks to it. Okay, so here's the other thing. This comes up so much. I need for you to understand the difference between duplication and enabling, or AKA hand-holding. How many times have you felt like you were dragging or pulling? Or I oftentimes hear coaches say, gosh, I'm just really struggling with leadership. I feel like I'm holding their hands. So often the idea of duplication and systems get wire crossed with hand holding. We want to empower our coaches to be free thinkers. We want to give them a baseline. We want to tell them what we did, how we did it, and why, but we want to empower them to get out there and do it on their own and in their own way. I think, and listen, I am victim to this too. I think we've all felt in a moment before, well, if I just gave them the perfect script, or if I'm going to put them in all my groups and I'm going to do this for them and I'm going to do that for them, and that's duplication and therefore that's leadership. But sometimes we give too much and that doesn't duplicate, or actually it does. And then what happens is a generational problem of people who don't feel strong enough to stand in their own power and their own belief in coaching. So here's the thing. Think of family traditions. Perhaps your parents had a very specific way that they hosted holidays like Christmas. And when you have your own family, chances are you're probably going to keep some of those traditions, but you're going to add in your own because your family is slightly different than the one you grew up in. Your parents passed down the foundations and the principles, and then you expanded on that and changed it to meet your own family's needs. So that's what I want you to think about as you're building your systems. Am I providing that family tradition that can be passed on, but over time will be tweaked to meet that individual team or family's needs? Now, here's the thing. Check your ego at the door. Listen, I am always constantly having to remind myself of this. Being a leader, it's beautiful, but it's challenging. We all know that. Leadership is hard. And we often tie our own feelings of aptitude as a leader to what our coaches are doing and what our systems they're engaging in. When we offer a duplication tool and it doesn't resonate with them, we sometimes feel hurt and we begin to question our effectiveness as a leader. I've been there. I've done that. Well, I'm doing it this way, but they're doing it that way. Does that make me a bad leader? Why did they not want to do it that way? But we have to remember, we all have such varied personality types. Remember, your goal as a leader is to show up as your best and most authentic self, to share what works for you and be open to new ideas and to share those as well. The number one thing that we want to duplicate within our teams is a growth mindset and empower their inner leader. Let that sink in again. I didn't say our number one job to duplicate is scripts, tools, resources. Those will all come. But our number one thing we want to duplicate is that growth mindset and empowerment of how they will show up as a leader. Don't worry so much that they duplicate exactly. Worry more that they implement basic principles that will have them build a business that they are proud of and that will last a lifetime. When I look at my own team, we all run our businesses so differently. And honestly, that's one of the most beautiful things I love. We're so varied in what we do and how we show up. Though the basic principles are the same. We all wear clothes every day. We just accessorize differently. So from here on out, the question should no longer be, how do I get my coaches to be more like me? You hear that all the time. How do I get my coaches to do this? How do I get my coaches to be like me? Or sometimes you'll even hear, I wish I could just find more me on my team. Rather, the question should be, how do I empower my coaches to do more of what feels good to them? They say that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. I would argue that's not the case. For us, duplication, the twist of originality, is the secret sauce to a thriving business. So I want to empower you to think differently about your duplication moving forward. It doesn't have to be exact. Look for those basic principles and allow and empower your coaches to step into their own greatness.